Alright, today we're going to take a look at forms, and forms can be tricky, but forms are extremely powerful. They're the basic input method if you want to do any kind of e-commerce or if you want to exchange information from the web user to anybody else. So we're going to start a page as we always do, HTML, head section, not head section, title, we'll call this one forms. And the head section, body section, and the body, and HTML. Alright, we're going to save this as, let's see, I'm going to make myself a new folder. Call it form, and this is going to be form.htm, and yeah, type text. Okay, so we're ready to start. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a form tag. There's really about four essential elements of a form. The first one obviously is the form tag. So we've got a begin and end a form. And then within the form, we need some content. And so one piece of content will do input. And so this will be input of type. Input of type text. So okay, so input, this creates a field on the form for the user to submit something, and type text means the kind of thing they're going to submit is text, as opposed to a button or a checkbox or something like that. Okay, now in order for this stuff to work right, all of your fields should be named. We're going to call this one first underscore name. Notice I made this name one word with an underscore. I don't know necessarily that is necessary, but some databases might need it to be a single value as opposed to two values in a string. So just to be safe, I'm going to do it that way. Alright, and then for now, let's just stop that, right? Okay, so what this is going to do is create a field on the page that is the user is expected to enter their first name. All right, and then let's do a submit button. So another input, but this time the type is submit, and the value is submit, capital S this time. Alright, so let's stop here for a second. Something went wrong. Oh, right here. There we go. Let's stop here for a second and take a look at where we're at. Bear with me as I... Okay, so I'm just going to open up this folder where this is saved and try. Yeah, didn't really mean to open up documents. Let's try that again. Alright, here's form. I just happen to like Chrome better in this case, so I'm going to open Chrome. And I got to shrink this down so it fits on the page. Come on, Chrome, let's cooperate. Alright, so, hey, so here's what we've created. We've got our field and a submit button. Okay, so all is well. Now, a couple of problems. We have if we're the user, and this is the first time we're seeing the form, we have no idea what to put in this field, and the submit button doesn't do anything. Okay, so these are both considerable problems. So let's go back and edit this a bit. All right, first of all, in order to get this, in order to make this form make sense to the user, we're going to need a label. Now, you could simply put text on the page, but a better way to do this for accessibility would be to use the tag label. And with this tag, you use an attribute called for, and for should reference what the label is for. First underscore name. Okay, now one unfortunate thing is that for tries to connect to an attribute in the input field called ID, which didn't previously exist. I think in some cases it can or should attach to the name rather than the ID, but to be safe, we're going to say ID. So what this means is this ID is naming this input field, and this label is for this ID. So basically it links the two together. And we're going to put on a label like first name end label. Okay, also while we're here, let's go ahead and throw in a line break. All right, so if we do that and refresh our form, now we can say we've got a field that's got first name on it and a button for submit. Okay, if I push that button, what happens? Well, nothing happens at all. Okay, so here's the important part. In order for your form to be functional, you need two attributes in the form tag. Okay, and notice, let me point this out even before I go any farther. Notice that all of the inputs for this form are in between the opening and closing form tag. For some reason, the most missed thing on this assignment by students is that they put some of their inputs outside the form tags. Well, if the inputs are outside the form tags, they'll look good on the page, but they won't submit with the rest of the form. All right, so essentially what happens is this input right here creates a submit button, and when you push that button, it acts on the attributes in the form. And the two that we care most about here are the action and the method. Okay, so the action tells us where to send the data. When the user fills in the form and hits submit, it's going to send the data that they input to whatever URL is listed under action. Okay, so common kind of a thing would be like, I'll just make one up, form handler.php. All right, and then method tells it how that data is going to go to this URL. Now, the method, the two kind of defaults are get and post. So get will actually take all the data that's been in these input fields, and it'll put it into the URL. It'll actually list it in the URL at the top of the page in order to send it to the destination. So in that sense, it's not very secure at all. So a better method would be post. All right. So now what's going to happen is if we hit the submit button, let's say save. Okay, a refresh. If we hit the submit button, it's going to attempt to put whatever data has been entered here. It's going to attempt to take whatever data is entered there and send it to a file called formhandler.php. All right. Now I'm going to hit submit. It's going to come back and say web page not found. Why? Because there's no such file. I just made that up. All right. So for now, we're going to let it be. We're not going to worry about this. We're going to come back to this in another video, right? But I did want you to get the basic idea down that in order for you to have a chance of your form actually doing anything, you need to have an action and a method in the form tags, and then the submit button acts on that action. Okay? Okay. All right, so what I want to do here for a little bit is kind of continue with these input types. So you can see a variety of different input types. So again, we'll try to maintain this pairing of label and input. So this label, let's do a label for password. And we can say type your password here. All right, and so then our input type is going to be password. So this is a special input type, and what it does, hang on. Okay, what this does is it abstracts the text. You see bullets instead of text. So if somebody's trying to read over your shoulder, they can't discover your password. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Oh, let's put another BR in here. Keep these lines separate. Okay, so now if the user were to type their password here, notice it comes up like that. Where if it was just typed text, it would show text. So far, so good. All right. Okay, let's see, another input type. I'm just getting some space in here. Trying to maintain that. All right, let's take a look at let's take a look at radio boxes. So radio checkboxes, these are fun. So we'll do a label, and we'll call this yes, no. Oops, look what I did. There we go. Yes or no. And so this time we're going to do input type equals radio. Name equals yes underscore no. And I'll be lazy and just copy this and say ID equals yes or no. And then we have to give it a value, because a button by itself, you don't know what it is. You have to tell it that the value of this particular button is going to be yes. And let's say that we want this button to be checked by default. We'll say checked. And then the word yes to appear on the page. Okay. And then if we want another button that's a no, we can take this yes button, copy and paste it, and this time, see, the name stays the same because these buttons work together. With radio buttons, it's one or the other, not both. So it's like a toggle. Or if you have a series of them, if you have like 10 of them, you can only check one of those 10, not all of them. So this one's going to be no, and of course we're going to take off the checked. Okay, so they work together. So this looks like this. Yes or no, yes or no. And see, if you check one, it unchecks the other. And the most important thing to get that to work is to make sure that they have the same name. If they have different names, it's going to think that they're two different radio button sets. Okay, so that's pretty important. All right, similarly, you can do, we'll do a label. Oops. This one will be for this one will be for checks. And I'll say choose as many. I will just say choose multiple. So I'm going to change this. This is going to be choose one. And this one will be choose multiple. And so you could do input. Oh, you know what? This one is not an input, is it? This one, yes it is. So sorry. You could do input type equals checkbox. But this time, name is going to equal choice one. Choice one. And so my ID. Oop, lowercase ID. I said my ID is going to be checks. Okay, checks. And then it'll say choice 1 on the page. Yes, yes. Okay, so then what we can do is we can just take this line do I need a BR? Not sure if I need a... No, they'll put them next to each other. That's fine. So my tabs look messy. And this time, the names can't be the same. The ID on all of these, you know what? I'm not going to even put an ID on the rest of these because I only have one label for the whole set. Okay, we'll make 2, 3, 4. All right. And I have left something out. I also need a value. Because when you submit these, when the user submits these, it needs more than just what shows up on the page. Okay, so what's happening here is that each one of these inputs is going to create a checkbox, and if that box is checked, then it'll be this value. And if this box is checked, then that shows that value. And the difference here is that this choice shows up on the page, and this choice is the one that's submitted when the form is submitted. All right, so let's take a look. All right, choose multiple. You'll notice that the box is squared rather than a button. That means so you can choose more than one of these choices as opposed to the radio buttons where you can choose one or the other but not both. Okay, let's see. Kind of similar but a little different is the idea of a drop-down box. Let me throw in the BR here to keep this at bay. So a drop-down box is a little bit different. So it's not actually called an input. Instead, it's called a select. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a label for it. And this is going to be a label for, we'll call this drop-down. Alright, so there's our label, and then instead of input, this time we're going to do select, and we're going to call the select group name equals dropdown, and of course ID equals dropdown. Okay, and then from here, we can indent just because it's visually makes sense. We've got options. So the value of this option, this first option might be, what are we up to now? 5? Excuse me. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So this is going to be one item in our drop-down. Now what we could do is we could take this, and because I'm lazy, we'll just copy and paste it. All right, this could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then one other thing you could do is you could specify which one of these choices will show up first in the box. So you can do selected. Got to spell it right. Selected. Okay. And then when we finally get down here, we can do end select. Alright, and that looks like this. So because we said choice 7 selected, choice 7 appears by default in the box. If we click on this, we can drop down to any of these, and we can revisit as many times as we want to until we hit submit. Okay. Alright, so that is a select box. Let's see. We'll show you two more. Maybe two more in a reset. Alright, so we can do a text area. So again, this is not a input. This is a text area, which is for paragraphs. And we'll say name equals para for paragraph. We've got the equals. And therefore, ID equals para. Got two equals there. And in this case, what's interesting about this is that it makes you specify the size of the box. So let's say that I'm going to have maybe 5 lines of text. And then we have to pretend that there's columns. So that says calls for columns. And imagine you how many alphabetical characters you might have in a row. Let's do, I don't know, 45. You can always adjust it after you see it on the page, right? And then what happens is you can put in some default text. You don't have to put in the default text, but it kind of gives people a heads up that that's what this is for. Okay, and you know what I did? I forgot to put in my label. Okay, now I'm going to get super lazy, and I'm just going to copy this one, put it in here, and we're going to make it for para, and we're going to say type of paragraph. Okay, so we can say save and refresh. Here's a place to put in a paragraph, and it says default text because I put in the text default text right here. And so the user can come in here and type in a paragraph. And it's supposed to be 5 rows down, and then if you added up the characters, it's supposed to be 45 columns, so 45 characters across. Now, in some browsers, such as in Chrome right here, you've got this little wrinkly looking thing in the corner, meaning this is adjustable. So the user can pick this up and make it the size they need it to be. No smaller than this, but bigger if they choose for it to be bigger. So that's interesting. Okay, so next. This is kind of a fun one. This is a button. So you know how on the form we've got this button that says submit? Well, you can have a button that says whatever you want. And so it's type button. And you know what I already did? I forgot a BR here. And on my button, I want to have I need to specify that it is type button. It's kind of redundant, isn't it? And so name, we'll call it click. And ID then also equals click, not clack, click. Okay, and then at this point you are going to use a little JavaScript, and I recognize that we haven't done this yet. I'm going to put it on a new line just so that it's cleaner to look at. We haven't done this yet, but JavaScript is a scripting language that's a little bit, in a way, more powerful than HTML. HTML is a markup language, which means it controls the way the page looks. JavaScript is a programming language, which means you can put in programming structures like loops that can be far more powerful. We're going to just use it for something really simple here. We're gonna do a lot of JavaScript work on behaviors like cause and effect, and so we're gonna look for a behavior called onClick, which means when they click the button that we're creating, then something's gonna happen. So on click, we're gonna do alert, and then we'll give an alert message. So in single quotes, we'll say something like, "You pushed the button." Right. Quotes, and then we can also specify the value of the value that appears on the button itself. So like click here. Oops, not a. End button, right? Yeah. End button. All right, let's take a look. All right, so here's a button that says click here. What happens when you click here? Bang. JavaScript alert. You push the button. Okay, so essentially we created a pop-up. You know pop-ups like pop-up ads? We just created a pop-up and we set that pop-up to go off on this behavior on click. And we associated that on click as an attribute within the button. Right? So that's the way that works. Kind of fun. Okay, the very last thing I want to do here is not very different than what you've already done. We have this special kind of button that's got the value submit. And we know that when you click on the submit button, it acts on this form action, right? Now we haven't created that handler yet, so it doesn't do anything yet. But there is another similar kind of button, which is reset, which is spelled reset. And the value here should say reset or something similar. All right. Now, for some reason, students often get the type right and then leave the value submit. So the button says submit, but instead of submitting, it resets, which just seems kind of mean. So let's save that, and we'll refresh this, and I'll show you just kind of the point here is if I had start to type in these fields or make choices in my form, right? If I come down here and click reset, bang, it puts the form back to the way it was when you started. So it's like, okay, I really screwed up my form rather than starting over completely, or actually I am starting over completely, but rather than having to back out of it and come back in it or whatever, I can just hit reset and it wipes out the form and it can start again. Okay, so that's the purpose of reset. Okay, so let me show you one little style. It's not a style, but one little stylistic formatting thing, and then we'll save the rest for another video. So we know that we've got this form action, right? There is a tag you can put in here called field set, and all this does is it draws a box around the form. All right, so if we save this, bring the form back up and refresh it, now notice we got a box around the form. Woohoo! All right, and then if you want to get even half a bit fancier, you can go up here and within field set, you can put in legend. Within the legend, you could have a style like maybe H2 style, and you could say, there's a form. End H2, end legend. So what happens is if you have a field set, the legend will work with the field set. Okay, they work together. So refresh, bang. So see, here's a form, it's just an H2 headline, right? But what's unique about it is that it's inset within the field set border, right? So that's what we're getting by calling it a legend rather than just a headline, is we're getting it kind of inset in the middle of that border. All right, so that's the gist of creating a form as far as its inputs and as far as its content type. I'm going to do a separate video. I know this is a long one, but I'm going to do a separate video that shows you what happens when you hit that submit button. We'll talk about form handling in a different video. All right. All right. Good for now.